Part 3. My rich aunt found out I was living in my car while working 2 jobs to pay for college, and my cousins were making fun of me to everyone. Now she's excluded them from her will, and my uncle is livid. My cousins have continued to work on themselves. Jake has been promoted to shift supervisor at the coffee shop, and Emma is now one of the most popular servers at the diner. They both apologized to me countless times, and while our relationship isn't perfect, it's getting better. The divorce between my aunt and uncle was finalized last month. He tried to claim half of everything, but given the evidence of his embezzlement, the judge wasn't sympathetic. He ended up having to pay significant restitution to my aunt's business. The most surprising development is that my aunt has asked me to start learning about the family business. It happened during a dinner celebration for my first semester grades. She brought out a thick binder filled with company history, financial reports, and business plans. "Your mother helped build this company too," she told me. She was brilliant with numbers and marketing, but she chose to be a teacher because that was her passion. When I took over the business, she was my unofficial advisor for years. This company's success is as much her legacy as it is mine. She then revealed that she'd found notebooks full of my mother's business ideas and strategies, some of which had helped the company through tough times. "You have her mind for business," my aunt said. "I see it in the way you analyze problems and find solutions. I want you to help lead this company into the future, alongside your cousins. It's what your mother would have wanted." She says she wants me to take an active role in running it someday, alongside Jake and Emma. They've both been supportive of this decision, which shows how far we've come. As for my uncle, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for the embezzlement. The sentencing day was harder than any of us expected. Despite everything he'd done, watching him being led away in handcuffs was devastating for Jake and Emma. They broke down in the courthouse parking lot, and for the first time, I truly saw them as what they were, scared kids whose whole world had just fallen apart, just like I had been when I lost my parents. Without even thinking about it, I hugged them both. We stood there crying together, 3 cousins who had gone from enemies to family in the truest sense. That was the moment I realized that sometimes the family you rebuild can be stronger than the one you lost. None of us attended his sentencing. Jake and Emma say they might try to rebuild a relationship with him someday, but for now, they're focused on becoming better people themselves. The way my Aunt Sarah stepped into my life as a guardian happened so gradually I almost didn't notice it happening. It started with little things. She texts me good morning every day, just like my mom used to. She'd show up at the diner during my breaks with home-cooked meals because she worried I wasn't eating enough. When I got an A on a particularly difficult midterm, she cried as hard as my mom would have. One night, as we were looking through old photo albums, she pulled out a picture of my mom at my age. "You look just like her," she said softly. "She would be so proud of you. Not just for your grades or for surviving everything you've been through, but for the person you've become. You have her heart." We both ended up crying for hours, but it was healing tears this time. She often tells me that helping me was the wake-up call her family needed. While I still feel guilty sometimes about all the changes my breakdown caused, she insists that everything happened exactly as it should have. I'm sharing this final update to thank everyone who supported me through this journey, but also to share something amazing that happened last week. My Aunt Sarah and I were going through some old boxes in her attic, looking for business documents, when we found a letter my mom had written to me before she died. It was tucked away in an old journal, dated just a week before the accident. Reading it, I could hardly breathe. It was like hearing her voice again after all these years. In the letter, she wrote about how proud she was of me, how she saw so much potential in my future, and how she knew I would do amazing things with my life. But what really broke me was the last paragraph, where she wrote about her sister, my Aunt Sarah. "If anything ever happens to me and your father, Sarah will be there for you. She might not show it right away, she's always been slow to open up, but she has the biggest heart of anyone I know. Trust her, lean on her, and let her help you when you need it. She's not just my sister, she's my best friend, and I know she'll love you as her own." Reading those words, everything that happened this year suddenly made sense. My aunt wasn't just helping me out of obligation or guilt, she was fulfilling a promise to her sister, my mom. When I showed the letter to my aunt, she started crying and revealed that my mom had written her a similar letter, asking her to watch over me if anything happened. She had been carrying that letter in her wallet for years, waiting for the right moment to step in. Later that night, we invited Jake and Emma over for dinner. As we sat around the table, all of us together, sharing stories and laughing, I realized something profound. Sometimes the worst moments in our lives can lead to the most beautiful transformations. A year ago, I was sleeping in my car, feeling completely alone in the world. Now I'm surrounded by family who truly care about me, not because they have to, but because they choose to. Emma mentioned that she's keeping her waitressing job even though she doesn't technically need to anymore. "It keeps me grounded," she said. "Plus, I like the person I'm becoming." Jake nodded in agreement and shared that he's thinking of opening his own coffee shop someday, starting from scratch instead of using family money. My aunt beamed with pride at all of us. To those struggling like I was, don't be afraid to accept help when it's offered. And to those who might recognize themselves in my cousin's former behavior, it's never too late to change, to learn empathy, to become a better person. Sometimes the universe has a way of teaching us exactly what we need to learn, even if the lessons come in painful packages. Last night, I visited my parents' grave for the first time in months. I told them everything that had happened, about the letter, about Aunt Sarah, about how Jake and Emma have changed. As I sat there talking to their headstone, a warm breeze rustled through the trees, and I felt, for the first time in years, that everything was going to be okay. More than okay, actually, everything was exactly as it should be.